feel like a bit of a bittersweet sort of a day out there today? You got a better from the down on the catch and then got nicked off and it was dark?
Yeah, definitely very frustrated. Obviously it always makes you very angry as a batter when you get out and then everyone walks with you off the field. Definitely really makes you think about, obviously that specific ball, was probably under the light meter and you're getting out. But at the end of the day, he bowled a really good set there, backed it up, bowled 4 or 5 balls in the same spot, and then that one obviously just kicked. But yes, very frustrating.
Marnus, going back to the one where the decision was overturned, can you just sort of take us through that, what you thought it was, because you looked pretty, you were putting gloves back on and getting back to your crease, so just describe what went on there.
I mean, the easiest way to explain it is I nicked it and I looked back, and as soon as I saw the type of catch, regardless if it was caught or not, it just, with the technology that's come in with the video, there's so many ones now that people are adamant they caught, and Simon said that, he said I've caught that, and like in the old rules of like catching it because you felt like your fingers were under it, absolutely, but in the new footage, like those are so scrutiny because you see so many angles, and the angles make it, especially that side-on angle makes it look really bad, and then you look at the front-on angle and you're like, oh, that actually looks pretty good. But if you, the old school mentality of the benefit of doubt goes to the batter, that's probably the one that, I think they've gone back to that rule. So the soft signal on field doesn't matter anymore, where before it did. So if the umpire gave it out, then it would be, he would have to find conclusive evidence not to overturn it, where now it's up to, I think Ketz was up there to make the decision with no interference. So I don't know why the umpires still give a soft signal, but that's a different topic.
Did you think it was a catch or not?
No, clearly not. I was still batting. No, definitely not. It's just one of those ones. I said if there's no TV, then I'm walking. Right? That's just how the game works. But with the amount of slow motion footage, you see the ball, you see his fingers push and split open. It's like, according to the technicality, some of the ball is touching the grass, regardless if his fingers are under it or not. I mean, it's just hard because, back in the day, or even before we had this sort of technology and camera work, they would just like send you packing.
Marnus, did you feel when you did get out at the end and then everyone came off with the bad light, even before the delivery was bowled, like in your mind, did you feel it was too dark?
I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't actually, it didn't cross my mind. I was just really focused on the ball. I mean, it certainly was dark. There was passages there where we were out there, especially before lunch, where it was really dark. And they couldn't get the lights on because it takes 10 minutes to get the lights on, but it was 10 minutes before play. So that was pretty dark, but they were bowling spin. Like I said, I don't want to harp on that. I mean, obviously, the umpires need to make sure that, if they do feel like it's dark, it doesn't matter if the over's still going or, something doesn't need to happen and then we go off. But like you said, perhaps they thought until I was dismissed, the light dropped suddenly and it became too dark.
Mate, there's a lot of ex-players who are expressing a view that, that it's the game needs to find a way to play through bad light. You've got people coming to watch the game, which I'm sure you can sympathise with, but do you feel like perhaps there's a lack of understanding of what it's like facing Nortje at 150?
That's such a tough question because they've all played, so they understand when it's dark and someone's bowling fast. I think perhaps their decisions are coming more from the spectators' point of view, and I feel like that for the spectators, right? I walked back up there after we went out and then didn't go out, and I said, well, that's the quickest way to lose spectators right there. But the reality of the game is it's got to be safe, and when you got two teams that are bowling fast, two fast bowling teams, you can't be out there and it's too dark. I mean, it's just it's hard to argue because you're like, of course we want to be, entertain a stacked crowd, but it doesn't always work like that.
Nick, did you?
Yeah, thanks. How did you assess the pitch today? It seemed like the spinners were quite early on getting a bit of turn. Is that what you thought?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I've played on a wicket that's turned from the middle as much as it did today at the SCG. So, which is very good that we won the toss and we're 2 for 150. Because I think for the little cricket that's been played on, there's already quite a decent set of foot marks.
Right. Just on the pitch, there's a lot of talk about this being sort of like a semi-preparation for India, and even in training, you guys are trying to do that. Has it played that way? Like, not just with the spinners, but just up and down nature of it as well?
Yeah, I felt like it felt alright at times against quicks. I mean, you couldn't score when the rain came down. It quickened the wicket up and the ball got a little bit damp, so it skidded a little bit more. And you probably saw we actually got a few boundaries off the quicks in that period. But, you know, at the start, it felt real, you know, like you didn't necessarily feel as threatened against the quicks, but you definitely felt like it was very tough to score. And obviously with the spin, I mean, the team that we've gone with, certainly, you know, we thought that these conditions were going to spin and that probably not pace was going to take a back seat, but I think that, you know, the real damage is going to be done by the spinners as the game progresses.
And so, just going back to the catch, at least on TV, you look like the South Africans in the slip cordon. They didn't look very happy, the conversation. So can you just tell us what was happening?
Yeah, no, there was no, we were just chatting. I just said to them, I said, obviously, if there wasn't this many cameras and the catch looked at so many times, it would have been out. Because, you know, the only thing I always said when the soft signal was in is that it's so hard for the umpires to decipher if it's out or not. So I appreciate the change of the rule, that, you know, it's just up to Kets or whoever's up there, because that's the best way to do it. I mean, it's so hard to tell if you're at square leg or they're on that's carried or not. And in the past, the soft signal has had so much weight, you know, there's been so many times where soft signal's been given out and it actually looks, you know, probably less conclusive than that one today, but it stays out because, you know, the guy who caught it thought he caught it.
Jasper and or Scotty, have you got one each?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Can you talk just about the difference between facing a red ball under lights to a pink ball under lights when it's dark? And, you know, if we're talking about getting more cricket on, I mean, is the option eventually to go to a pink ball more often in Test cricket so we actually have days that aren't disrupted so much by bad weather?
I certainly hope not. I certainly hope not, because the balls are just so different. Like there's no consistency with the pink ball. You know, there's no consistent swing. Everything happens quite erratically. The ball's also made slightly different. You know, with the painted coat, not it's painted pink where the leather is actually dyed. So I think the ball reacts so much differently with spin and pace. It's so hard. I mean, the red ball, sometimes you feel like you can see it really well when it's dark, but it just didn't feel, you know, it wasn't one of those days. And the pink ball is just, the red ball, under lights, it just doesn't stand out. So it's just quite tough and dull. And I think it's probably more dangerous for the fielders because you just can't see the ball square of the wicket. You know, and slips and everything, it's quite tough to see. Whereas the batters, at least you have the side screen, and, you know, you've actually got a white backdrop to have the best chance.
Marnus, do you feel for Matt Henshaw? I know Matt was playing on, but coming down sick just to get his chance to come back on the side?
Look, I'm not sure I actually only saw him briefly this morning, so I'm not sure the state of how sick he actually is. But he's fine. He's playing on, and, you know, obviously if he gets to a point where he's, you know, can't play, then obviously the COVID sub comes in. But at this stage, he's certainly nowhere near that, and he's fine.
Just back to the balance of side that you've picked, and it might be your leg spin gets more use on this pitch than the medium pace.
Third quick.
Well, I mean, on a semi-serious point, is that genuinely something that, as a team, and you are working to develop, so that when you get into a scenario where you're only playing 2 frontline quicks, there is someone who can, without meaning, there is someone who can bowl some seam up from time to time? Is it a thing?
It's certainly something that kind of happens by accident. It's not something that we're actively pursuing. I mean, we're going to hope that we're not going to play without the likes of Cameron Green very often. But I think it showed clearly the hole that he leaves in a side. You know, I know he said last week, you know, or the week before that, you know, he feels like sometimes he didn't play that much of a role up to that point. But it's funny, as soon as you get rid of him, you're like, geez, like two and two bowlers, geez, that's a bit different. You know, we're not used to that. But yeah, so what was your question again?
Just for you and the coaches, are you seriously trying to develop your medium pace as another strength, along with your leg spin, or is it still a bit of fun for you?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably leaning more towards that. I think, you know, going into England where there might be opportunities to bowl a little bit of seam up depending on who we pick, but yeah, it's a bit more of a, you know, helping aid if we lose a bowler that I, you know, have got to run up. I can make sure I can do a job, hold an end up to make sure we can rest the quicks.
Go back over left here and we'll finish off.
Oh, a similar question at Renshaw, but I mean, like, obviously everyone's getting COVID now. The boys worried that might go through the camp, or you're at a point now where you don't really care?
Yeah, no, don't really care. That's, yeah, yeah, it's just play on. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Answer to that.
Yeah,
Just so you know, they're all of the precautions that we're taking way more precautions than the general public in terms of mixing, separating, that sort of stuff than is happening in the general populace.
But yes, we don't care. Sorry, we, as in I.
While we're on Renshaw, did he have to literally kind of have the walk of shame down to wherever his other change room
Yeah.
was? Like, did he have to pull his kid out of the room?
Yeah, I walked in there and he was walking out. I walked in there, he was walking out. I don't know, he must have, I think he asked for some sort of medication just because he had a bit of hay fever. And he was, and then just had a test and he tested positive and he was out pretty quickly there. So, like I said, just to avoid precaution where you don't get, you know, 5 or 6 guys being sick. I think that's the main thing you want to avoid.
Can I just check, is that the only time in your senior cricket career you've called for a cigarette lighter on the field? And what was happening?
No, it wasn't. I've struggled. Yeah, I've stolen Cole's lighter a few times, but I carry one in my bag now because I only wear one helmet for short leg and when I bat. There's not as much care taken when the boys throw my helmet for short leg. So the top of the helmet, the frills come down a little bit and it gets in your eye line. And I should have done it before I went out because I actually remembered. But as soon as I got out there and I looked and I saw it straight away, especially with the way the light comes in, especially when the lights were on, it's very annoying. So I just try and make sure I burn it off.
You not have scissors?
No, the lighter just gets it because they're quite like very fine, you know, so you can just see it when the light's at the right height.